Well, hello there. I'm Papa John. I love to talk about movies that I love that others don't. But today we're switching it up. We're talking about a TV show that everybody loves, including myself. That is none other than The Penguin. It's comic book media, it's Batman, it's Gotham City, it's DC. You know, I'm going to talk about it because I love that shit. So, let's get started. So I'm going to do things slightly differently this time. I'm going to look character by character by character. I'm going to structure it basically going over each of the three main characters' arcs throughout this film, the film, TV show, and we're just going to kind of use that to give my overall opinions on the show because almost everything I have to say involves one of those three characters. I think you can tell who I'm going to talk, the three that I'm talking about. But if not, I'm talking about Victor, Sophia, and obviously Oswald. Victor is by far the most sympathetic character and most relatable character throughout this show, especially just from the very get-go. You know, he's a down on his luck kid who got his parents, his family, everybody he loves except for his girlfriend got killed during the events of the Batman and the flooding of the city. And his home, his neighborhood, just got ravaged and destroyed, and the city hasn't done anything to really fix it. It's just very sympathetic too, because he also has like a sympathetic stutter to him that just makes you kind of feel sorry for him and want to root for him. And he gets stuck in this bad situation where he gets caught by Oswald trying to steal Oswald's like rims, and he just gets looped in to this huge just mob storyline. And just sort of seeing his development throughout the series involving all of that. Because at the very beginning, obviously, you can tell that he feels like he's kind of a slave and that he's like trapped as Oswald's sort of minion. But then you get to that episode, I think it was episode 3, where you get his backstory. And you get the story with him and his girlfriend. And how he says he's going to leave Oswald and go with his girlfriend to California. But then he makes the decision to stay with Oswald because Oswald wasn't keeping him hostage. And he feels like he can learn more from Oswald and become a made man, which is kind of what everybody wants to become. Everybody wants to be a made man. And so that's very relatable. However, just a personal thought. This might be the hopeless romantic inside of me. He's a fucking idiot. Because, yes, you can sit there and make all that money with Oswald, but I'm pretty sure there are gangsters in LA that you can make money off of. You know, you can make money in LA. Money's easier to find than love, in my humble opinion. So when you find love, you gotta go for it, you know. Because you can make money anywhere, to be fair. It's not always easy. Sometimes extremely difficult, but whether it's legal or illegal, there are ways in pretty much any city. That's my TED Talk for today. So after that third episode, Victor spends most of the series trying to prove himself to Oz, you know, in almost a similar way that we'll get to later that Oz is trying to prove himself to his mother. Victor sees Oz as like this father figure, and he wants to prove himself to Oz. So much to the point that he does become a pseudo second father, since his real father did pass away after the events of the Batman. And so you get Victor like appreciating Oz, thinking of him as family, as a father figure. And when he confesses in the last episode that he views Oz as a member of his family, views him as family, and that he'll do anything for him, you get that gut-wrenching moment in that last episode, which, I'll be honest, it was not spoiled for me, but at the same time, I saw it coming. I kind of figured that's the way it was going to go, because to me, that was the way that made the most sense, just given who Oz is supposed to be. And it did go that way. It was gut-wrenching, don't get me wrong, because they did such a great job building up Victor's and Oz's character relationship. So they did a great job, even if it was predictable. That was okay in this instance. Now on to the Hangman.
No! You don't do that, you son of a bitch! No!
Oh my god, unbelievable.
Sofia Falcone Gigante. I thought her story arc was great. I mean, obviously it was great. Everybody pretty much says it's great. And I'm not going to repeat that anymore. It's great. It's great. It's great. Sophia's arc was one that started off very predictable, in my opinion. You know, when she gets released and everybody's just saying, "Ooh, it's the Hangman. She killed all these people," and she's saying she was innocent and everything. I think it was pretty obvious she was innocent, even without showing us the backstory episode. I thought a bigger twist would have been her actually being guilty of it and having a legitimate, personality disorder. It didn't go that route. I didn't expect it to go that route. I don't think it should have went that route. I think they went the right route, and this is another one of those instances where predictability was not bad. And because of that, it told this great story of her redeeming herself in a sort of way, not redeeming herself to become a good person. She still becomes a terrible person and goes down a dark path and does bad things. But redeeming herself in the way that she outsmarts her family. Like, she outsmarts this whole crime family. To the point where the Falcones don't even exist anymore. And she changes the name and she goes to leave the house. She's going to leave everything. She doesn't want to be a Falcone, so she takes her mother's name, Gigante, and it's all really good, nicely put together, but obviously she can't leave until she gets her fucking revenge, because Oswald killed her brother. Oswald is the one that ratted her out to her father, and her father subsequently put her in a mental asylum and ended up blaming her and turning her into a serial killer in the media. And I think Sophia's story arc is the most fleshed out as a full story arc. I do think Oswald and Victor each have very similar amounts of character development, but I think overall story-wise, I think Sophia's is probably the most fleshed out, and she's not even the title character, which is not a problem. It provides for a great antagonist to Oswald's protagonist. And I really love how they ended Sophia's story, how she was going to leave and just abandon everything. She just needed to do one thing, and like I said, it was get the revenge in Oz. But her determination, her need for that revenge is what essentially kills her. Obviously she doesn't die, but it essentially killed her in a spiritual way, because she has to go back to Arkham. And I love the way they shot the scene. It was so brilliant how they did the whole thing where she was standing at the lake and Oz was holding a gun to her head, but he obviously never actually pulls the trigger. And just the way they did all of that, I kind of thought it just seemed like how that was going to go. There were a lot of moments in this show that I did find predictable, but I found them predictable because that's what I wanted them to do, and that's what they did. And I'm not going to fault them for doing what I wanted them to do. So Oswald's story, it had me hooked at a lot of points. They had me a little worried at others as well, I'll be honest. His was the most up and down for me throughout the show. But overall, it was great. I do think it's Mommy Issues the movie, or Mommy Issues the TV show. This is one of those instances, though, unlike the other two, where I found the ending somewhat predictable, but I didn't mind, because that's what I found it predictable because that's what I wanted to happen, and that's what they did. This is slightly different. I think because throughout the show, I think they kind of show us that Oswald will always be loyal to his mother, even if his mother stops being loyal to him. So you get to that point where his mom is just screaming at him that she hates him, and she goes over, she stabs him, and even though he won't save his mom's finger, he still is loyal to her. And I think personally, he would rather his mom lose a finger than him admit that to his mom. I don't think it's necessarily he didn't want to save his mom from getting her finger chopped off, as much as in his head. Obviously not in the mom's mind, but in his head, it would hurt his mom worse to hear the truth than it would to have her finger cut off. And I think that's more where his mind was and in the moment, which is completely different than other people in his lives, because you see his relationship with his mom is extremely different. It's the only person he has loyalty to, and the only person he doesn't necessarily lie to, or he doesn't lie to her with other motives in mind, per se. Because even after she stabs him, when she collapses, that's all he can focus on. And I think that shows that he still will always, no matter what his mom does, he will always have that loyalty and will always want the approval of his mother. And I think that's something he never gets, obviously, as you see with like the final scenes and sequences. He's never actually got that from her, and that's something he desperately wants. And he has, like I said, mommy issues, undeniably, some really bad ones. And because he has sort of that undying loyalty to his mother, I really think the best option, for multiple reasons, even for story reasons, they can prove me wrong if they do a season 2. They can definitely prove me wrong, and I want them to. I want them to prove me wrong. Because if they do a great job, then they do a great job, and I'm not going to complain. But I do think, from where I'm sitting right now, the better option was to because she becomes a vegetable, was to have him follow through with that promise. And then when you get to season 2, he no longer has family with Vic. His mom is no longer there for family. He has all of those detachments gone. And you can just do a full-on, all-out, just unhinged Penguin in season 2. And don't get me wrong, I still think they can do a really good unhinged Penguin while still having his mom alive and out there. But it does, I feel like, undermine the whole reason he killed Vic. That being said, he's the Penguin. He's a liar. It's okay for that character to be a hypocrite. This isn't Superman doing something hypocritical. This is the Penguin. This is a gangster. This is a villain doing something hypocritical. I'm not going to complain about that because that's a villainous thing. But I do kind of think you could have had more weight to it if he had killed his mom for becoming a vegetable like she wanted him to do. And then he goes and kills off Vic for both being family, but also because Vic would have known or seen that he like smothered his mom with a pillow or something. And there's also Salvatore Maroni, who is a legend in DC, especially voice acting. You know, he's done Gorilla Grodd, Lex Luthor, he's done countless things. So he's a legend in DC, and I love seeing him here. Also, Julian Rush, I was a big fan of. Theo Rossi, I was a big fan of Shades in Luke Cage, and to see him here again, he's someone that I love. He's not someone I necessarily want to see as a main character, but he's a great side character for a lot of these shows. It's nice to see him again. But overall, I genuinely loved this show. I love the whole thing. I love all the twists and turns with the Bliss, the bombs exploding. They all did a fantastic job. Great character development, great storylines, just great cinematography, great score. And it fits very well, feels very much like it's in the same universe as the Batman from 2022. Just on a personal note, it wouldn't really change my opinion on the show, but just kind of fan servicey, couple of seconds, not something necessarily storyline related. And they do kind of do something in like the final shot where they show the bat signal. But I do kind of wish they did a little bit more to establish this as being a Gotham City with Batman in it, because he doesn't even really get mentioned at all, you know. And I think that's kind of my thing here is I didn't need to see him necessarily, but I think he needed to be mentioned more and be a bigger presence in terms of like just randomly seeing newspaper articles that talk about the Batman. You know, stuff like that. Not necessarily have him as a character or anything like that. Just things in the background that just show, yes, this is a Batman universe. And so the Penguin from 2024 featuring, starring Colin Farrell in a bunch of makeup gets 4.5 slices.
The world ain't set up for the honest man to succeed. That should be the American dream right there.
Well, I've been Papa John. If you like this, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. If you hated it, hit the thumbs down. And tell me your thoughts on the Penguin in the comments section down below. Tell me why it's a dog shit television show. I'd love to hear those arguments. And as always, keep it hot.